Hey guys, Emily Muccianti here, and thanks for jumping over to my channel and tuning into this video. Are you a secondary teacher, middle school, or even working with upper elementary kids that are struggling with word recognition, but maybe you don't have the experience, the knowledge, the training in knowing what to do with those particular types of issues? Well, today I have a video that is going to give you some practical tips, give you some baseline foundational knowledge to help you with that side of what we call the simple view of reading. But first, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. Don't forget to check down below for the show notes because there are different links and resources that will help you along this journey. Now, I remember vividly moving into middle school. I had actually just finished my grad program and moved into the secondary space. Prior to that, I actually taught high school for 5 years, had zero experience with phonics at all. So as I'm moving into the middle school space and really focused in on intervention, some of those word deficits were more glaring than when I taught high school. And I was at a loss. I was completely at a loss. So it wasn't until I really got my hands on some great training. I learned a great deal from our diagnostic center. I had some great resources that I was starting to get my hands on. But the most impactful thing with me as in regards to my phonics knowledge was going through Orton Gillingham training. Those 30 hours of training taught me so much. Thank you to MC for that because it was so helpful to my own knowledge. Now, what I had to do with that information was figure out how to weave it into a classroom setting because I was working as the student's English teacher and interventionist. And so in my secondary situation, it wasn't small groups, it was more of a classroom setting, although there were smaller class sizes, like 20 or so. I digress. So what I want to do today, and thank you to Jen for giving me this inspiration for this video, is give you some underlying knowledge, terminology, and tips so that you can attack this. Now, let me say this. I'm in the middle of writing my reading reset course, and our beta is launching. It's going to be ready and available for everybody in July. And one of the things that came up was, what if you're a secondary teacher and you don't have that experience? So let's jump into that. First thing I want to give you is a little bit of knowledge about kind of letters and sounds. In the English language, there are 26 letters of the alphabet, and there are 5 vowels. The vowels can be exceptionally tricky for kids, particularly our English learners. Now, every letter or letter combination will make a sound. These sounds, or the individual speech sounds, are called phonemes. That's what it is, the smallest unit of sound. When we write and spell, we are using letters, which we call actually graphemes, that are matching those sounds to a letter or letter combination to create the sound. So, for example, if I were to demonstrate to you the word cat, there are 3 sounds in the word cat. We have k, a, t, 3 sounds. Let me demonstrate this. So the first is the letter C is a consonant, the letter A is a vowel, and the letter T is also a consonant. So we have cat here. Now, the letter C is the grapheme that represents the k sound. The letter A is the grapheme that represents the a sound, and the T is the grapheme that represents the t sound. But I don't want you to think that graphemes are single letters because they are not always. For example, if I were writing the word chip, we have 3 sounds, ch, I, p. The sound of ch is represented by the grapheme ch. This is a consonant digraph. So it's only making 1 sound, and then we can continue on with the rest of that word. So a grapheme is a written representation of a phoneme. With me so far? All right. Now, another term, two terms that I want you to be familiar with. We have blending and we have segmenting. When we blend sounds together, that's what we would usually call sounding out, right? We're going to say the sounds and put them together. So if it was cat, k, a, t, cat. We have blended all of those sounds together. We use segmenting when we're trying to spell or write is kind of what we would draw on. If I'm writing cat and I'm going, what's that first sound? That's a C, A. I'm stretching it out. Now, all of this is also involved in phonemic awareness, but for you all, I'm trying to really simplify some complex issues here. All right, so you with me? We've got vowels, we've got consonants, we have phonemes and graphemes, and we have blending and we have segmenting. Now, what are some things that we can do? When we have students that are struggling at this basic phonics level and they're in secondary, the first thing I want you to realize is we can't use words like cat and dog. These words have already been orthographically mapped in the brain and are recognized as sight words. So the student is not drawing out this phonics knowledge or applying it to words. So you want to think about using nonsense words. First of all, I think this is more respectful of the students than giving them little words that they consider baby words. So nonsense words are a great way to do this. So let's say, for example, I first want to make sure that my students have letter sound correspondence, meaning, do they know all of the sounds that each letter makes? And so I can use grapheme cards. And these are basically just letter cards. You can create them, you can order them, but we need to know. Now, let me back up just a little bit. If I had kids that were really struggling in word recognition, I would be doing a phonics diagnostic in order to find where that area of deficit is. But I'm moving ahead to assume that we already know that kids have some issues. You can pick up in this with wherever their issue lies. All right, so phoneme, grapheme, cards. This is where we are practicing the sounds of the letters. So we would just flash it and show it, and the student has to say the sound. Z, G, and so on. Now, the next thing, once we know that we have that, we want to help students to blend different sounds together to make words. So we have something, and you can see I have mine back here. This is called a blending board. You don't have to use a blending board. You can do this with a whiteboard. You could do it on the desk. You can just do it with cards. But what I like to do, and this is the way I was taught, that we are going to pound the sounds and stretch it across to read the word. So let's imagine that we had the letters M, A, V, and I wanted to help my students to blend those. We would do our blending drill, A, V, mav. We are demonstrating that segmenting and that blending using a nonsense word. We might do MIP, I, P, MIP. This is something that we are going to build into a quick routine. It doesn't take a lot of time, but depending on where your students are, they might need some blending practice. Now, many of your students are beyond this phase, right? They probably have some of those basic skills, the ability to blend. But the thing about our older readers is now they're exposed to multisyllabic words, which are a bunch of small little syllables put together. But big words, multisyllabic words, are very intimidating to kids that don't know how to read. So when we're using these nonsense words, it's actually replicating the individual syllables in a bigger word. So when a student is coming across a multisyllabic word, I hear this all of the time from maybe parents, teachers, well-intentioned, but just not really understanding how to help the student. We typically tell a student when they come to a big word to chunk it or break it into syllables. And I want you to think about this. How do you chunk a word or break it into syllables if you don't know where to divide it. And unknown words, you typically wouldn't know where to divide it. And so there are some things that we can teach them. There's something called syllable types and syllable division rules. Now, I don't want to belabor this because it can be very, very complex, but there are two syllable types that can be really helpful in your moving through with bigger multisyllabic words. So let me show you one. Let's say I have a word and I don't know what the word is. Hopefully this color comes up on. This word here, how would I help a student to break it apart with a very simple kind of strategy? And what we do is we first find the vowels. Every syllable has to have a vowel sound. When you can identify where your vowels are or where those vowel sounds are, you know how many syllables you have. So I have two vowels. That means I'm going to have two syllables. I can draw a bridge in between these two, and then the division has to happen somewhere in between the vowels. So in this case, when I have two consonants in the middle of the vowels, I would simply divide here. This word now, the first chunk that I get is can. Now, why does the A say ah? This is what we call, sorry, I'm making a mess with my pens here. This is what we call a closed syllable. And I'm looking, I know I've got a glare on this, I apologize. Okay, so this A is going to say the short sound of ah. Why? Because it is blocked in by a consonant. It is closed in. It is a closed syllable. Closed syllables have short vowel sounds. Same thing over here. This is blocked in by a consonant. So that I is going to say I. This is how I know where to divide and what sound those vowels are going to have. Can, did, candid. Let's try another one. Let's say I had this word here. Again, more than one syllable because you can see I have more than one vowel. Now, the division has to come somewhere in between these vowels. In this case, we would try to divide it after the vowel first. If that works and it makes the word, great. If that doesn't work, I would move it. So let's try this. Now I have RE, and I'm just evaluating this syllable. That means there is no consonant after it. It is open. When a syllable is open, the vowel says its name. And that's why this E says E instead of E. So we have re. Now here we have something called an R-controlled vowel. That OR is really attached. It's not quite a short or a long vowel. It's R-controlled, but we could blend this P or T, port. So we have report. So open syllables do not have a consonant after, and the vowel is long. Closed syllables have a consonant after, and the vowels are short. I know, like clear as mud, right? Again, you're going to need training, but I want to give you the down and dirty. All right, now, what do we do with multisyllabic words? Now I've got words that maybe have 3, 4 syllables. It's not as simple as just that quick little division. And I want to give a huge shout out here to Anita Archer and her rewards program, because this is what it focuses on. And it gives us a very easy strategy to help expedite our students' reading of multisyllabic words. So let me demonstrate. Imagine you're a struggling reader. You come up with this big, long word. Honestly, what struggling readers do when they see big words is they really shut down. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to attack it. So we're going to teach some word attack for multisyllabic words that will hopefully help. I also want to give a shout out to Carrie Cole from Side by Side Teaching. I love her video that demonstrates this also. I will link those both down below. All right, so the first thing that we can do when we're working with a really large multisyllabic word is we want to identify where we have any prefixes and suffixes. So we see here, we have the prefix in. This is a unit. Kids, we would assume, have already been taught this. We're going to keep this as a unit. At the end, I can see we have ATE, 8. So we have the prefix in, we have the ATE at the end. Now, what do we do with the middle of the word? Well, we want to, again, find our vowels. So I have a vowel here and a vowel here. And I'm going to draw my bridge and see what is in between. And I can see I have 2 consonants in between. When we have 2 consonants in between, we typically divide right here. So let's try now looping and chunking this word to see if we can get to the word. We're going to read it in parts. We have in, closed syllable here. So it's going to say vest. We have another closed syllable here. So it's going to say tig, 8. Investig, 8. Now we want to use our fix-up strategies to make it a real word, because we may chunk it really explicitly like that, but we've got to turn it into a word. Investigate. Investigate. Let's try one more. Okay, here we have another one. First thing we're going to do is circle our prefixes and suffixes. And I can see we have re. Oh, look, I have another prefix, pro. Do I have any suffixes? No, this is actually going to be the root of this word. So what I have here is a vowel, but this is attached to the vowel. That's the silent E making this vowel long. So this word, if I read it in chunks, read it in parts, I have re, pro. This is going to say oo, deuce, reproduce. So there are a number of different phonics skills, tips that you can get to when you're working with your struggling readers that are older. I would strongly urge you to consider getting rewards from Anita Archer. It does all of this very, very explicitly so that you know how to teach it to your students, and it's going to provide the ample opportunities to actually read big words, which is exactly what they need. All right. I hope this was helpful. I know that it's a ton of information. And like I said, this is the down and dirty. Get in there if you have students that you are working with, if you are a special education teacher, or you have students with severe word level issues. Please get yourself into some training, particularly Orton Gillingham training, because it really will teach you so many things about how letters and sounds all work together to read really big words. All right, check those show notes. Jump into my Reading Reset course if you'd like to learn more, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for what you do. Bye for now.